Alright guys, I wanted to do one of these price analysis and trade recap videos because it's been a while since I've done one. Things have been pretty busy. I've made sure that I get something out, so I'll be doing these annotations. Have you seen, I'll do like a 2-minute or a 5-minute price annotation, and so I'll kind of mark everything, my thoughts along price action, but always I think a video helps people, especially those that are more visual learners, when I do these candle by candle replays and then annotate or narrate price as we go. So right here is the SPY 2-minute chart. I have my extended hours on, as you can see here, and I'll show you what indicators I add on and kind of what my setup is, just because I know I've been getting a lot of questions on that and I want to clarify that. So this is a completely naked chart. There's nothing here that, this is just when you create like a new chart and then you add SPY on there, this is what you get. So I do like to have the MACD on there, so that's the first thing I want to add. It just gives me a good idea of kind of where the market momentum is. And then I'll just add my own indicators. So if I go to my invite only scripts, I will add the SMT indicator, I will add the SPY key levels indicator, and then the supply and demand zones indicator. And I typically do add the SMT additional SPY fibs, but I didn't have it on today, so I'm going to just kind of do the price action as I saw it today, and I didn't have it on today. So now in terms of settings, so because I'm on the 2-minute chart, I'm just going to keep all of my signals on, because what I recommend is signals for higher time frames are okay, but if I'm like on the 5-minute chart, I don't want to have 2- and 3-minute signals enabled. You can do it sometimes. I mean, they're typically pretty good, but just because the request security function is not, because of just time issues, time discontinuity issues from pulling from a lower time frame, I would recommend having them off. So if you're doing a 5-minute chart, disable 3 and 2-minute. If you're on the 10-minute chart, disable 3, 2, and 5, etc. So because I'm on the 2-minute and there's nothing lower here, I'm going to keep all of these on. I have my time from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's Eastern time. That's what I'm on. I don't have my chop filter on. I have all my table settings on, and yeah. So these are my settings. And let's go ahead and begin. And then I will narrate price action. I'll show you where I took some trades, and then kind of what I observe as price moves along. So at the beginning of the day, we were consolidating for a while, and this typically happens. If you look at yesterday, we had a very strong sell-off, and so when we have something like that, typically the open, we wait for a trend to establish, we just kind of watch. And I like to watch for the first hour unless we get some clear range break. So if we look right here, it's pretty clear to see that we have a support right there, so I can just draw a line right there, and there's a pretty clear resistance right there. So I draw that, and that's kind of like my consolidation region that I'm watching. So you can see that we did break through it, and then we just spiked right back up. So that's not really a good directional move. We still have this back and forth, so we're going to wait for something to give us a bit more direction. Look at that rejection of that resistance, pretty clean. Get a lot of bouncing back and forth. So here is where I start to kind of, you can see that we keep retesting this key level right here, and it's held up, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So if we were to really strongly close and get some momentum behind a move past this key level, we could see some downside pressure. So there's that nice bearish engulfing candle, and I would expect some continuation on a sell-off. Now, totally forgot to, for some reason my supply and demand zones indicator didn't add, so let me add that right here. Yep. And I like to have all the zones enabled unless there's a ton of them overlapping. So by default, it's going to enable 5 of these zones, or 5 days prior, so 10 zones. But I'm going to go ahead and just check all of them so that they're all on there. But anyway, this helps with what I was about to say. So once we get a consolidation in a region like this, and then we have a clear break below that region, then I would expect a little bit of continuation. The next level that I'd be looking at would be this yesterday low of day and previous day demand zone. So I would expect, you could enter puts here looking to grab that as your target, and then you can do like a stop back above that key level or the 9 EMA, whatever you want to do. But you can see right away on that next candle, we push all the way through it, which is, the fact that we went all the way through that, we didn't even bounce, and we have this rising sell volume, or just volume profile on the sell, then you'd expect actually the sell to continue a little bit more, maybe find a bounce on pre-market low. So barely had anything off pre-market low, and then we just kept selling off. Now I was in meetings, so I did not take any of these. I didn't take any of this, but I was watching when possible, and I was waiting for an alert to actually get me interested. So a lot of downside pressure, and then we have a bounce there. So what I like to do is when we get a bounce, especially a strong bounce like that, I like to just mark that as, it is marked as low of day, but just to be sure, I like to mark that as a support level. You can see we pull back. Now we pull back to a resistance confluence area. So what I say about this is you can see like a resistance confluence is when we have basically multi-layered resistance. So you can see the 21 EMA here. You can see an overhead supply zone. You can see pre-market low. So if you were if you were to enter on a bounce to play this or something like that, I would expect some kind of at least pullback in this region. So we do get a pullback, but ultimately we end up consolidating here, and I think we actually just end up breaking out of this consolidation region. And then looks like we reject pretty cleanly off of VWAP. And we're waiting for a nice break here. So a lot of strength on this bounce, and it looks like it's going to get some more continuation. So there's a 3-minute buy signal. So when I got this buy signal, I got the alert. Typically what I'll do is if I see a signal, like a buy signal that closes right here and almost hit the 200 EMA resistance, I don't like the risk to reward on that. So if I hop in and this works in my favor, I might, be able to scalp this to the 200 EMA, but the fact that I have an overhead resistance right there, I'm not a fan of. So I wait until if we get a candle close above the 200 EMA, then I would hop in. Now my immediate target, of course, what we're looking at right here is this resistance that's, tested multiple times. So that would be where I would scale, my first scale, and then ultimately this supply zone up here would be the final scale, because that was where we would expect, just based on the way I plot these zones, we would get some pushback. So there we go, close above, we take some of our profits here, and then the stop here would be like a close below the 200 EMA or the 9 EMA. We continue, and then on this candle I take the rest of my profits. So that's my first play. That was where I played calls. Now you can see it's an inverted hammer rejection of this zone, as well as a pretty significant rise in volume. So that is a little scary, so I definitely want to make sure I get out there. We end up pulling back, finding support. We actually end up testing this same zone 3 times. You can see it held up pretty nicely. Every time we hit this zone, we got pushed down, hit it again, pushed down, same thing. So we expect that when we actually break through this zone, we would get some momentum. And right there, so this huge breakout. Now this breakout didn't really have any strength. We did flag for a bit, and so it does look like, we flagged here. We got a nice volume rise, things are looking good. You expect maybe some continuation to the next zone, but we really just consolidate for a while. We form kind of like a resistance right here. You see we keep trying to go back and forth, and ultimately we just end up dumping. So at this point I don't want to play any more upside. You can see that the upside is very extended, and so we would watch for a downside move here because there's a lot less risk involved. So we're just waiting. So you can see, I skipped a little ahead, but you can see that we got a 2-minute sell right here. So this is where I got the alert, and I was really curious because we did have kind of this push down on high volume. We had a kind of a bear flag form, and you can see this was a 3x in volume basically from this candle to this big sell candle. And so I was hopping in right here on this 2-minute sell signal, and really I was just looking to scale first. It's a very quick scalp. I was just looking to scale first at this support right here, since this was a really strong resistance earlier, and then the 200 EMA obviously would be my final scale. And then you can see that the 200 EMA also held up here. We had this kind of tweezer bottom off the 200 where we made a move up. So we enter our puts there, and then honestly I didn't really get to scale because we just dumped all the way to the 200 EMA, and that's where I took my profits. But you can actually see that we're starting to get some rising volume again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to make a move down. And you guys know the price action. We made a huge move down. I was done trading at this point, but we did get a second sell signal. You see right here, a 3-minute sell. And on the sell signal, so what I do is when I have a signal, obviously the next level down is where I take my profits. And the next level down was this key level. And so if I were to enter a put scalp here, or even just a short on ES, I would just look to take my profits right there. I don't want to risk a bounce there, especially because there's not that much downside. And there's just too big of a gap here that I don't have any supports drawn or anything like that for me to hold a position. So again, I do like the rising sell volume. So you could hop in and scalp there. You can see, boom, we hit that key level. And then we get a nice bounce off of there, which is pretty good. It validates that key level. But ultimately, you can see we can't get past this 9 EMA. We find some resistance. Here we have a nice, honestly, we're just kind of consolidating along this key level. Not really a breakout to the upside. And then here is when we start to look pretty bad. Once we close below this key level, I would expect us to continue dumping. we find a little bit of support here on this previous day demand zone. You can see we made a nice little bounce up, and then we run into some resistance, push all the way back down, and there's a lot of volume on that candle. Yep, a lot of dumping here. We get a bounce and then dump again, and so really it was just kind of like a sustained downtrend ever since we got these double confluence signals, the 2-minute and 3-minute sell, just a continuous downtrend with some bounces here and there. I mean, like a bounce on this key level, bounce here on this demand zone, bounce here, I don't know what level this is, but strong bounce here, and then we'll kind of just keep going down. And I think we get a nice little bounce at end of day, and then we get a little 2-minute buy signal here, and then a nice green candle after that, but I don't take anything that close to the end of day. So that's just how I view price action, and those were the 2 trades that I took, and yeah, so that's how I played today.